far as they go.
Hello and welcome to the Sofa. Here at the World Water Week in Stockholm, my name is Eric Paglia. And in this session, we'll discuss what government leadership in the wash sector really means, and how policymakers can be engaged to deliver the necessary services to fulfill the water and sanitation SDGs. And joining me here on the Sofa today, we have Patrick Moriarty, CEO of IRC, and Joseph Oriano Iyatu, an engineer by training and commissioner for rural water and sanitation at the Ministry of Water and Environment in Uganda. Welcome to the Sofa, gentlemen. Nice to have you here with us.
Thank you very much.
So Patrick, from IRC's extensive experience and examples in the wash sector, how can strong political leadership drive systems change?
Great, that's a great question. And I think we're all here, we're talking about leaving no one behind. Okay, we're talking about this global challenge we have to bring safe water and sanitation to everybody by 2030. And I think what we've come to learn over the last few years is that the only way you do that is where government takes a strong lead. I know, and that's an easy thing to say, that's a nice thing to say, of course government should take a lead, but what does it really mean? And I think for the last few years, it's sometimes been quite challenging, but interestingly, more recently, I think we're really beginning to see some exciting examples. We've seen India, the Swachh Bharat mission. You've seen what can happen when a president really gets behind delivering water and sanitation, really begins to make that the heart of their political engagement. And I think closer to home in the work that IRC does, so very important to get political buy-in at that national level, but also very important to find the political leadership at the local level, in mayors and district commissioners, and people who are responsible, the sort of people that IRC works with, the members of government. And I think there we're beginning to see some really exciting signs of strong and dynamic leadership buying into the idea of universal access, which has been quite a change for some of the folks we work with. So we're seeing that where you get that political engagement, we're all scared of the money, but the money will follow the politics. And I think that's one of the key messages that we see. And when you get government engaged and championing and believing in the idea of universal access, you begin to see that the money follows.
Yeah, I agree.
This is something that, Joseph, that you work with on a daily basis probably in Uganda.
Yeah, political leadership is critical in us achieving the universal coverage. And I always want to mention the word leaving nobody behind. This is more especially important in the rural areas. And that's where the voters for all politicians live. Most of them, like in Uganda, where most of people live in rural areas. So the important thing about political will in our country is there is no program that can go to the next level without political approval. Starts with the cabinet minister, it goes to cabinet, and is the one to present it, and it goes to parliament. All those are political leaders that need a buy-in. So the leadership that we demand from always our politicians is to show us why they need this, and the pressure comes from the voters. In a developing country like ours, the strength of the voter pressure is not as big as in developed countries. So you find that it's only in the areas, I've always said, whenever I go to parliament, when they have a crisis, that the good thing we have is all our elections take place during the dry season. Because during the dry season, that's when we have the biggest challenge, and everybody's talking about water. But immediately it rains, then the discussion shifts. Now the issue is roads. We can't access this place. The other bridge has been washed away. So we always want to make sure the politicians are in. We have a devolved system of government. To the local government, we sell them a block grant. We tell them, you have 400 million shillings, Uganda shillings, say allocate it the way. So we need the politicians to be on your side. Otherwise, they have other options that they can select to take. So it's always as critical in the government, for me works in the government, that you have your politicians on your side for you to achieve anything.
I mean, as an engineer inside of the state apparatus, you're a civil servant, but you're really dependent upon finance from the government level. What sort of strategies do you adopt to get their attention? If you need to fund a project or an initiative, what ways do you get their attention?
I think when you are selling anything to the government, first of all, they look at equity. Is my area covered? My area, especially when we go to Parliament, which is the biggest decision maker in all our programs, everybody wants to find out, is my area covered? So now what we're trying to design, all our programs try to stretch beyond just dealing with one region, so that every region is touched, and then we must define clearly the criteria under which we've gone to a particular region. That's where leaving nobody behind comes in. We'll make sure that we are going to an area because there's a particular challenge we're addressing. And normally we have our data very clear and say we are going here because at the moment, in the last few months, crocodiles have eaten people when they're going to the lake. That's one thing. Politicians like to hear things which are scary. Two, we had a demonstration here because people didn't have water, or here water is shared with animals, and then you give them the data. So that's how we get the attention of the politician. And also engagement from the beginning. Whatever programs we design, we make sure that we have a committee in the parliament that deals with our issue. They must be engaged from the beginning. Send them the information, let them have it at hand, so that by the time you go to parliament, they're already aware of the program. It makes life easier. I think the issue of lobbying, whereas we come here to lobby external finance, even when we go with that money, we still have to lobby our politicians to make sure they buy in. And that's the way to go. Once you do that, then you get the buy-in. And it comes very easily.
Now, WASH is one of the themes of this Water Week in this session here. What challenges in WASH in particular are you dealing with most in Uganda at this point?
Reliability and sustainability is one of the key challenges that we feel, and that's where political leadership comes in, sometimes on the negative side. We put systems with the aim that they're sustainable over a long time. But what we've found out in Uganda, sometimes because of political interests, which sometimes are short-term, we find that we set a policy that everybody should pay this amount. You set a tariff, a politician will say, no, this is too high. And once you hear that word like this, then you have lost it. So it's always very critical that at that stage of sustainability, the politicians are on. That's the first level. And of course, that also has a difficult side to us, because most donors, if not all, will not invest unless they're sure there are returns that can run the system for 20, 30 years. So the biggest challenge you always have is, how do we have the politicians on our side that they don't put a word, that word will be the killer. That's the first side. The second side, which I mentioned in earlier presentations, is that we have areas which have a higher level of service. And then we have areas which have a lower level of service. But now, because we have politicians who represent each area, everybody wants to go with something home. What does that mean? Most politicians look at the short-term way of achieving things. They have 5 years to be in parliament. They must go back with it. And whereas my target is to leave nobody behind, their target is to make sure they go with something home.
Exactly.
So how do we strike that balance to make sure that they go with something home, but also make sure our resources go to where we need them most? Those are the people who don't have a service.
And I think we have our Honourable Minister has just joined us, who is a politician.
Yeah, we have one more
And
guest that joining us here on the sofa today. Very welcome here. The idea with this session was to actually get perspectives both from the civil service and from government, and we're honored to have joining us here on the sofa. We have the Honourable Cecilia Abena Depa. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yes.
The Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources in Ghana, who reports directly to the President on his ambition to deliver wash services to all and make Accra the cleanest city in Africa. So welcome to the
Tall
sofa.
order. Thank you. Pleased to be here.
And thank you for joining us here on the sofa. We've just been hearing from Joseph about some experiences in Uganda, and we're very happy to hear
Yes.
about your government perspective, your ministerial perspective from Ghana. So perhaps you can start by telling us in what ways political leadership has impacted the WASH program in Ghana.
I believe first and foremost, the President, in his determination to put WASH programs as a top priority, created the new Ministry for Sanitation and Water Resources. And that is very emphatic. And then with his ambitious declaration also that he wants Accra to be the cleanest city in Africa. Everybody thinks it's over ambitious, but I believe it is doable. Our president is a man of vision. He is a bold, conscientious leader, very hardworking, and he expects same from we the appointees. So I was initially the Minister for Aviation, I was moved into the wash sector to make things happen. And I always tell people it's not about new infrastructural projects, but making do with what is existing and keeping it clean, maintaining it, and making sure that the future has a good roadmap to achieve the vision. So politically, I believe we are in the driving seat, and we've been added, my ministry has been added by His Excellency the President to 15 priority areas nationally. And I have easy access to the Minister for Finance. If there's funding to be dished out, we are considered as a priority. And I must say I'm a very happy woman serving my nation.
That's a good word.
Yes.
And I think, I was saying when just before you arrived that we see in the countries that are making the most progress, that are beginning to accelerate their rate of coverage, it's that sort of political leadership that makes it happen. And we've seen it in India. I think maybe we're starting to see it in Nigeria.
Yes.
You're talking about it in Ghana.
Yes.
But I think one of the questions that we ask ourselves in Sanitation and Water for All, the global partnership that is pushing this, is what makes that happen? How do we need to get to more presidents, we need to get to more first ladies, we need to get the sort of leadership that's coming in Ghana. And I'm just wondering, I think I've asked you before, but what is it that made this happen for the president?
Leadership. What is leadership? It's all about people. The first gentleman of the land decides that it's my government. This is my focus. Cleanliness. Sanitation is all about cleanliness. This is what I want my people to have, be it hygiene, washing of hands, be it the provision of places of convenience across board, be it building infrastructure in the area of drainage, storm drains, gutters, everything, to make sure flooding doesn't happen. Because when it does, the problems that flooding can create. Cholera, outbreak of cholera, people are displaced. Although they are in their own country, they get displaced into insanitary conditions and areas. And this can be prevented when you work through these things. And above all, the quality of the water available for the citizenry to drink, to cook with, etc. That eliminates, to begin with, health diseases. In the health area, diseases. Then it comes to children under 5 who have diarrhea and dysentery, and they die because of that. Per the statistics we had at the plenary yesterday, 700 million children die because of bad drinking water. This is one area that we will want to eliminate. And I've repeated it both in Ghana and I've done it here. That this government, because it puts its money where its mouth is, has invested in both rural and urban water to the tune of about 1 billion through loans and grants. And this is undisputed. And I believe it's a government that is realistic. We cannot do everything at the same time, but we are on course. We are partnering, or we have partnered with World Bank. They've provided funding that provides home toilets, household toilets to vulnerable groups. And it's community-based. And government of Ghana gives 70% with the World Bank, and the individual homes pay 30%. And it's caught on like a wildfire. Why? Because now the community owns the project. And we all know what sanitation does for us. It gives us dignity. Apart from water giving us health and making sure girls attend school, and women who take care of incontinent, sick people get a relief. We have good water to wash our clothes, to drink, to cook with, etc., etc., etc. We know what sanitation gives to us, especially young girls. We have a story of an 8-year-old girl being raped whilst on her way to visit the community toilet. For me, I don't believe in community toilets much, although it can be an interim measure to prevent people from doing open defecation, I would want each home to have a toilet, especially for the aged, for children, for women and their privacy, especially teenage women and the other women who are having menstrual periods. We need to mention these things as they are to make sure we drive and drill home these messages to people to appreciate. So this is where we are. And I'm excited because when you work in the area of water and sanitation, for me it's a blessing because you are adding improvement or you are improving the lives of humankind. And there's no better way to prove your love for humanity than to make sure water is free. It's a human rights issue. I also see it as a very basic issue. We have no choice but to work towards the provision of water. So in our manifesto as politicians, we have in our manifesto water for all. And this is our guiding principle. As I was at the meeting with the donors, I had to solve a problem because one of the regions, in the Volta region, the water system broke down. We had to quickly send in the technicians, and I was contacted from the seat of government to make sure I was on top of the issue. So fortunately, it's worked out and everything is sorted out. And like I said, hands-on. Yeah.
Perhaps you could say a few words about how the political level in Ghana works together with the civil service in implementing the WASH agenda there.
Okay. I came in here. My chief director, acting chief director is here. We always work together in sync. He's head of administration, and I'm the political executive head. We work together. We must work together. Because I always tell them, I'm passing through as a politician. You will be there till you retire. So they are there as a pool of experts. They are there as a pool of experts. There's mutual respect, mutual collaboration. I don't lord it over them that I'm the minister. So no, we work together. It's a team. It's a team, and I'm very happy. I have a very good, resourceful team. We have experts in the sanitation directorate. They are all civil servants. We have environmental specialists. We have some for liquid waste, for solid waste, and then for water. We have the water directorate as well. They are all civil servants. Myself and my two deputies, we are the passengers passing through. But we make sure we work with them effectively to achieve the vision. So it's mutually, we have to mutually work together, mutual accountability. Like we had at one of the meetings. There's no way out. We float or sink together. And we are floating effectively. Yes.
Very good.
Yeah, I just wanted to add the role of political leadership here. I think Honorable Minister has been very spot on. I want to bring hygiene here. One of the challenges we were facing at one time was the issue of hand washing. And we realized our talking to the public was not yielding results. And we said, what's the best way to move it? We said, we have to call the president in. And in one of the occasions when we were celebrating the World Hand Washing Day in October, we said, Your Excellency, we need your leadership here. And he came. When he came, he demonstrated and he talked about it for over 6 months. Everybody was talking about it. So the political leadership in some of the things makes a hell of difference once they're involved. Once they buy in and talk about it, everybody believes. Anybody who believes in the leader will believe in the message. So, and they have a bigger forum. Political leaders have a bigger forum. As technical people, we don't have the ability to talk to the public all the time like political leaders. So once a political leader has bought into any aspects, especially on hygiene, the economists have said, and others, it sells like hot fire. So he started talking about it in his every speech, that he wonders why people don't wash their hands. And when they know that 70% of the diseases can be avoided if you wash your hands. And everybody was asking, yes, I think this is what we should go. And immediately they talked about it. Then the local leaders also started talking about it. So sometimes the way to sell a message is to make sure that the political leadership takes the lead. Whereas when you talk, you say that's just a technical person talking. Yeah, you talk. But if the political leader talks, yes, there is belief.
Hitherto, it used to be traditional leaders.
Yes.
But now the role is reversed.
Yes.
So we work with them, traditional leaders, religious leaders, youth groups. You see, people who hitherto thought they had no voice. They've all found their voice in the stakeholder meetings. So it's, in fact, when I get back, I'm going to have an open forum on water and sanitation. I'll be moving around various parts of Accra, the capital, to make sure we are on one page with the communities. Because it's all about people. Some of these behavioral changes, you cannot lord it over anybody. They must appreciate where you are coming from. Then they will move with you. If you go there, like he's saying, you go and make your normal civil servants talk. Exactly. The wind blows it away and that's it.
That's true.
But you must break it down. So if they see a leader doing it and explaining at their level, that's it. And we have various forms that these things take. You see, because when you go out there to meet the public, you are meeting school children. So you can have it school children based, or you can have it market place based. Then you can have it the traditional Durbar based, or you can bring everybody together. And that's what happens. It's always very effective. And we do sketches to make sure we display by acting, through acting, what it means not to have effective hand washing behavior or attitude, and what it is to have E. coli tainted hands to eat with. So we bring it to their doorstep and it works. Yeah. But there must always be water. If water is not available, then the equation doesn't work.
Yeah, that's true.
And Patrick, perhaps you can add some further insights from other countries that you work in. I mean, Ghana, we've heard from Ghana, Uganda. Do these stories, do they ring true for other places that you're active in as well?
I think they do. And again, so, I wear a couple of hats. I work for IRC. I also, which is a member of Sanitation and Water for All, so like I said, which is a global partnership, more than 200 members, more than 60 state members, of which Ghana and Uganda. And I think this is a discussion we have all the time. We see that the sector is often, it's complex, it's difficult. It's sometimes, particularly I think from the ministries of finance, tend to see it as a bit of a bottomless pit. They're always, the technocrats are always coming back asking for more money. And I think, you mentioned earlier this whole concept of systems building, systems strengthening. And I think that's part of the message that we're trying to bring as SWA, as IRC, to the sector. And I think both Uganda and Ghana are excellent examples. I mean, the minister explained, one of the first indications of the new seriousness with which WASH was being taken in Ghana was to form a ministry. So before then, you had it. So there was a ministry that dealt with parts of it. It was fragmented. It was subsumed. Without that strong technocratic leadership, you don't have the space. And I think what Minister hasn't mentioned so much, but again you see in Ghana and in Uganda, is I think a professionalization also of some of the service delivery. So both countries, the national water in Uganda is famous as being one of the most performing utilities on the continent. Okay. Ghana Water Company Limited is being reformed, I think, but it's both there, of them and is there. Yeah. Both countries have also now created, or in the process of creating, a sort of rural utility to go with. So to bring that professionalization that we see from a national utility into the rural areas, so CWSA.
And now, good news. When you finish, I'll add to it.
You'll add, good. So in Ghana, the Community Water and Sanitation Agency, which is changing its role from being a facilitator of projects to being more like a utility provider. In Uganda, you're working with the national umbrellas.
Yeah.
And this is something, we also see that happening in Burkina Faso. We also see that happening in Ethiopia. So certainly for me, it's been one of the more exciting movements we've seen in the last few years in the sector is that particularly rural, which used to be very, I don't know, how do you
neglected.
say it without being rude? A bit neglected sometimes by government, a bit of a playground for every NGO, every project. They come in, they do their thing, they ignore local
without
government.
Any program.
And I think it's that, when we talk about leadership, that's what we're looking for. We can all sit in places like Stockholm and say we want government to lead, but it's only when government starts to lead that we can follow.
Yes.
And then it's the job of NGOs like us to come in behind you. But this is why was the idea behind this sofa, because I think we have two exemplary examples of government leadership from Uganda and Ghana. But I think this is what we're looking for.
Exactly. And to add to what he said, in rural water, for instance, we are even working on the act that set it up to make sure we bring it to the level of the urban water, because water is water everywhere. We don't have rural water and urban water.
Exactly.
Because I was a deputy minister in those earlier years, in my earlier life, when we put the community in charge of the systems. Exactly. It didn't work. And we are not ashamed to admit our mistakes as a people. So we did studies, and now we've employed 800 engineers who have gone around the whole country to take inventory of the systems that are not working. We have 85% that were not working. So now we've brought them all back to life, and they are going to be treated as a commercial entity with tariffs to be charged.
Exactly.
Hitherto, we did the system, gave it to the community. We formed what we called Watsons, water boards. And they took it like it's the government that put it there. They will milk the cow. When the cow is old, reject the cow, throw the cow away, and the cow dies. No more. Now government has stepped in through the Community Water and Sanitation Agency. And it's beautiful to, at least it's created jobs, employment, professionals are being worked, and they are making money. And now they are generating IGF, internally generated funds, to undertake all these projects. And it's beautiful. Very beautiful. Yes. And this is the way to go. Utilities with the tariffs, if we manage well, plug all loopholes.
Yes.
Get rid of corruption in the system. Pronto.
And that's the story I think that we can sell to the ministries of finance.
Exactly.
Then they're prepared to invest. But when they see it's not a leaky sieve anymore.
You are right. You know,
we
must prove that we are capable of generating at least some funds to take off ourselves in a way. So the bigger picture will be borne by the finance.
Exactly.
But not everything.
Yeah, that's why I want to add in that. That's where the interaction between the technical and political interface becomes very strong and important. We, the technical people, should provide our political leadership with the backup and necessary data and information that can support their arguments. With that, we can go out and give our financiers, Minister of Finance, donors, and other, the information that justifies our existence. I think you mentioned earlier that most times we go back. But if you go back with good news, like Honorable Minister is saying, that the good news is that out of the 85 which are not working, we have repaired 30 or 40, but give us more resources to complete the rest. That's good. So another area where we do that can help us to develop a policy. For you to make a policy in the government, the political leadership needs to buy in. But the political leadership relies on facts. And the technical person must provide them the facts. The fact that they can use to make the argument, because they have the language. You know that the interface means that the politicians know how to talk to the common man better than the technical people. They have the language to sell anything.
We tell them the truth.
They know how to sell anything. I want to stop at that. They know how to sell anything. So when we give them information, they'll put it in a language that makes sure that everybody buys it. So that when you come with a new policy, and when you hit a snag, you call the politician. So the politician, you give them the information, and that's the interface that we need to work in. And it works very well. And where it's working very well, you see progress. And the progress, when we go out as a ministry with the leadership of our politicians, we go to finance, we give them the numbers. Finance, the technical people will want the numbers, but the political people will want the argument. And then we succeed.
And it's always better when we are all involved in the planning. You don't have to hit any obstacle. At times they race before us. But it's always better that we race together so that we have one message throughout and we move faster.
Exactly.
Instead of going solo to hit a snag, then you come back and then at times you get frustrated.
Yes,
and midway you can give up. But if we plan together, foresee all these obstacles and work around, like we are all saying, I personally will meet my colleague, the finance minister, at cabinet. And I'll hint him we intend to do ABC. Oh, yes, okay, then let's have a look. So I'll put up a paper and even go and discuss with him before I take it back to cabinet for approval. Because you cannot squeeze water out of stone. If he doesn't have it, he doesn't have it. But you need to, not to coax him, but to let him be on one page with you. And like I said, fortunately, we are amongst the priority projects, so we can always have a leeway. But for others, how it works is we talk to each other to make sure the synergies work before it even goes to the president for approval.
It's been a fascinating discussion, talking to each other here, getting multiple perspectives, a couple of different very successful, it sounds like, cases from Uganda and from Ghana. We're very happy to have the Honorable Minister here for this SOFA discussion. So thank you very much for joining us, and the best of luck in your countries.
Very honored.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us here on the SOFA. Stay tuned for more sessions throughout the World Water Week.